Dealing with grief and loss. How to protect your mental health. Grief is an emotion everyone feels at least once in a lifetime. However, people experience grief in different ways, and the intensity determines its effect on their mental health. So, how do you deal with this emotion while protecting your mental state? Watch this video as we discuss this and more. What is grief? Grief is a natural response to loss. It is the emotional suffering a person feels when they lose something or someone they love. The pain or sense of loss is overwhelming, and you experience different emotions like anger, shock, disbelief, guilt, and profound sadness. A large part of the U.S. population grieves yearly. A report stated that about 2.5 million people die in the United States annually, each leaving an average of 5 grieving people behind. Also, older adults experience grief at a higher rate than younger adults or children. Spousal loss, death of friends, siblings, and cousins are higher with older people. The report further stated that an estimated 1.5 million children, 5% of children in the United States, have lost one or both parents by age 15. Grief affects people irrespective of age, race, or social status. People often associate grieving with death, but it goes beyond that. Any type of loss can cause someone to grieve. These includes relationship breakup or divorce, loss of health, losing a job, loss of financial stability, a miscarriage, selling or losing a family home, end of a long friendship, death of a pet, retirement, loss of a lifelong dream, loss of safety after a traumatic event. Subtle or unexpected changes in life can also cause you to grieve. For example, moving away from home for school or making a career change may lead to grieving. Is there a grieving process? There's no set guideline for grieving, and there's no wrong or right way. For some, the grieving period lasts 6 to 8 weeks, while it could last 4 to 6 years for others. The sense of loss could also continue for a long time. The period and process depend on several factors like your personality and coping style, life experience, faith, the significance of the loss, the state of your mental health. Whether physical or emotional, healing is a gradual process that cannot be forced or timed. So, don't compare yourself to others, as no two persons are the same. Instead, be patient with yourself and let time and intentional self-healing actions help you recover. Common myths about grief and the grieving process. There are several misconceptions and half-truths about grief. Below are some of them. The pain goes way faster if you ignore it. Ignoring the pain or keeping it at the surface makes it worse in the long run. To heal properly, face your grief and deal with it actively. It is essential to be strong in the face of loss. It's normal to feel sad, frightened, or lonely after losing something or someone you loved. Also, crying doesn't mean you are weak, and you don't have to act tough. Grieving should last about a year. As mentioned earlier, there's no specific time frame for grieving. So take as much time as you need. Moving on means forgetting about your loss. This assertion is not true. Moving on means you've accepted what happened, but it doesn't mean you've forgotten. What are the stages of grief? In 1969, psychiatrist Elisabeth Kubler introduced the 5 stages of grief. The stages came from her studies of the feelings of terminally ill patients. However, the steps are now generalized to other types of saddening life events and losses. The 5 stages of grief are: denial. Here, you fail to accept the loss you suffered or process the emotions that come with it. Anger. Experiencing anger is common after a painful loss. Bargaining. When desperation sets in, the bargaining stage of grief begins. Depression. After bargaining and nothing changes, a sudden clam leads to depression. Acceptance. At this point, you no longer deny the loss but try to make sense of it. There are different types of grief, namely anticipatory grief, disenfranchised grief, complicated grief. There are also emotional and physical symptoms of grief, which includes shock and disbelief, nausea, sadness, guilt, lowered immunity, fear, weight loss or gain, anger, aches and pains, fatigue, insomnia. How does grief affect mental health? Dealing with a painful loss can take a toll on your mental health. Chronic grief is an emotional roller coaster that could turn into a mental health illness. In some cases, grieving results in depression. For some people, this may be self-harm or suicidal actions. Others turn to illicit drugs or medications to help them cope. Over time, this behavior becomes habitual, leading to an addiction. How to protect your mental health when dealing with grief and loss. When dealing with grief, time does not always heal the wounds. You have to take proactive steps to deal with it and protect your mental health. Here are a few ways to do this. Embrace the emotions. Follow a healthy sleep hygiene. Stay busy. Get professional help. Protecting your mental health while grieving is essential to avoid depression. So, face your grief head-on, go through every stage of the grieving process, and get professional help. Like and share this video. Subscribe our channel for more free mental health videos.